That great man, V.I. Lenin, at the turn of the century, wrote a book entitled Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Is it imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism? Yes. If one would read this little pamphlet, one would see here that Mr. Lenin had precisely pointed out that all of the world had already been conquered and divided by colonial powers. There was no else in the world left to be conquered or divided by colonial powers. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case, quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it. Clearly here. Yes. The legal foundation of the State of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British, just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews, and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this. The basis, we say, is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. The Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East. It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow. And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string, and ham to American imperialism. They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus, they can hardly be a liberation movement. In addition to this, Zionism has nothing to do with anything religion, nothing. All religions are concerned with human beings after they die. That's what religions are for. Islam will tell you what happens to you when you die. As a matter of fact, this which forces you to live a good life so that after death, you'll be able to enjoy the rewards of heaven. The same is true for Judaism. But Zionism says nothing about the individual after they're dead. They don't give a damn about you. Zionism has nothing to do with religion at all. And one should not make the confusion here. The Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. This is a fact.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. Welcome to a Saturday edition of RBN Live. And as you guys see, I just want to give you guys another example of the long-standing solidarity between Black Americans, South Africans, and Palestinians. Our boy Kwame Ture, who I draw a lot of inspiration from. I strive to be a fraction of what Kwame Ture represented. That was the idea of the original name Fred Hampton leftist, even though it pissed off some liberals. Because the idea of a Fred Hampton leftist is the idea that we should never abandon this revolutionary culture that we developed. And even if we don't have the intellectual power of a Malcolm X, even though we don't have the accolades of a Fred Hampton, we're still going to call ourselves Fred Hampton leftists because that is what every single African-American, I believe, should strive to be. I think that's what everyone should strive to be. But if you're an African-American in this country, why the hell will you try to be like anyone else? Our culture try to be like, people try to be like Jay-Z. They try to be like rappers. They try to be like celebrities. These are the heroes I look up to. which is why I was extremely excited to give my speech at KU. Because before my speech at KU, I was thinking about Kwame Ture. And I'm still very thankful for Jill Stein and the Green Party for inviting me. Because when I was on that stage, standing in front of all those faces, I remember my mama was asking me, man, you're not nervous doing stuff like that? No, because as I was getting onto that stage on at KU, when I gave those speeches at black barbershops, like I used to imagine Kwame Ture. I would imagine Malcolm X and them giving these public speeches. Once again, these are the people I want to model my politics after unapologetically. The best compliment that I can get that a lot of people often hide as a diss when they said, look at Nick Cruse over there. Look at Nick and RBN. Who the fuck they think they are? They think they're the next Fred Hampton. Look at Nick. He think he's the next Malcolm X. Bro, the fact that you even use my name in their sentence with them shows that we are on the right track. I am a few lifetimes away before I can be compared to the person we've seen on this screen. But everyone should strive to reach that. That is what the people in Black Power media didn't understand when they got upset because how can you call yourself Fred Hampton leftist? You're not a Fred Hampton. The idea is that we all should strive to be. The idea is that we all should strive to be the best version of a revolutionary that we are. I've only been a theory reading Marxist for 3 years. Like I look at my old opinions like from 4 years ago, and I'm horrified, my friends. I see people show me tweets from my Bernie era, like whenever people get pissed off at me, like, hey, remember you tweeted this in 2019? I'm like, yes, it's horrible. Isn't the purpose growth? So my purpose is to continue to grow. So when, like, once again, for example, I'm 33 years old. How old is Kwame Ture right there? My thing is, imagine me when I'm 43. You know what I mean? When I got a little bit of the grays on the side, when you guys see the salt and pepper in the beard. That's who I'm preparing to be. I got into a big thing with Nick Fuentes when Nick Fuentes was responding to me because I was calling him out for being the Israeli op that he is. Because people who support Israel, they want you to make it about a religion struggle. They want you to make it about the Jews. The Jews are in control. The Jews. So Israel couldn't find a better ally than people like Nick Fuentes who buys into that bullshit. The struggle of empires, the struggle against Israel, the struggle against colonialism, the struggle against empire. Because as Kwame Ture said in the video, if you're anti-colonial like I am, it's a very core tenet of my ideology is anti-colonialism. If you're anti-colonial, you can't accept Israel. You can't acknowledge Israel because that land was given and blessed by British colonialism. That fact alone is why Israel does not have the right to exist as far as I'm concerned. How can you be an anti-colonialist, someone who's anti-imperialist, and then you justify the existence of Israel, a land given to the Zionists out of a colonial project? So when you understand that the struggle against Zionism is a struggle of anti-colonialism, that's the gravest threat to the Zionist project. It's the people like Nick Fuentes and many others who wants to muddy the water about what the struggle is about. He's making, I oppose Jewish people. We need to stand up for Jewish infiltration. Shut the fuck up. I called him out today. Nick Fuentes don't respond to a lot of people. He responds to me because I called him out for the Israeli ops that they are. You're going to see Tosi in the right-wing inability to acknowledge the fight being against colonialism. That's why they are openly hypocritical. That's why you have RFK who speak out against the Ukraine war. That's why they speak out against Afghanistan, Iraq. But despite all that, they get the other issues wrong. Why is that? It's because they're not getting Ukraine correctly. They're not getting any of these other issues correctly because they're anti-imperial imperialists. They actually support the United States empire. They just support good policies that benefits the empire. And this is what I always mention to people. When people say RFK Jr. anti-war, all these right-wingers anti-war, the idea that MAGA was ever anti-war, absurd. They were just against bad empire policy. Now, if you support the concept of empire in general, you will support war. It's inevitable. It's inevitable for you to support empire, imperialist action, colonialist action, because once again, your principles are not rooted in any ideology that meant down to tear down the colonial structure. So now this is why Israel loves people like Nick Fuentes, and him and his audience, they're so dumb they don't realize it. He said, I agree with left-wing anti-Zionist criticism of Israel, but our movement is distinct from theirs. I don't merely oppose Israel's current actions. I also reject the rabbi shit, whatever, Judaism and organized Jewish influence in general. So you guys see how he's making it about Judaism and about the Jews? He said anti-Zionism is not enough. Now, I'm not going to go through our entire exchange, but I got Nick Fuentes fanboys all on me. But I think you're not going to ratio someone like Nick Fuentes, but I think I'm doing pretty good. Because I'm exposing these frauds, and this mindset is why they will never get this issue on the right. And I explained, strange how your narrative about hating Jews is exactly what the establishment wants people to think anti-Israel people are. Because I am unapologetically anti-Israel. I don't acknowledge Israel. I don't think they have the right to exist. And I think I got not only a moral position on that, I have an intellectual and a legal basis on that. But this is why I have a problem with the quote-unquote anti-Israel right, the same way I had the same problem with the anti-Ukraine war right, because they're not rooted in any principles. I explained, it's almost like you're here to legitimize the claims of Zionists that people that are anti-Israel hate Jews. You're doing their bidding, but you are too dumb to realize it. And that's like, I think they're ops. I think they're doing it on purpose. But when you see these right-wing anti-Israel people, they're here to obfuscate the struggle, to legitimize the claims from the ADL and these dishonest Zionists that everyone who opposes Israel just do so because they hate the Jews. So once again, you're not going to ratio someone who has bot-driven and who has the support of Nick Fuentes. But one thing, I think I'm doing good. Over 100 likes here. And I was reading this one because Nick responded to me. He said, okay, he said, ignoring ethnic affinities is silly. So they all about identity politics. That's what this guy said. Ignoring ethnic affinities is silly. Once again, Nick Fuentes, these people are all about identity politics. Meanwhile, we had Lee Camp on our show, and he explained how Christian Zionism is the largest driver of Zionism. There are more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews in the world. Like Lee Camp just explained this to us this week. Lee Camp is a Jew. So if the struggle is against y'all Jewish people, why is Lee Camp not supporting Israel like Nick Fuentes and them pretend that like you would? And you guys see how Nick Fuentes, the amazing intellectual that is banned because he's here to destroy the left. That's what they said. They said Nick Fuentes is this titan of an intellectual, and we must ban him because we can't ban him. We can't debate him in a marketplace of ideas. That's what they told us. Ever since this guy was unbanned, I have been deeply unimpressed. This man is no intellectual. So after hearing my argument, you want to know what his response is? This is totally delusional. Oh, you're delusional. No argument. Completely stunned into silence is Nick Fuentes by my arguments that you can't say that your struggle against Israel is against Jewish people when you have Jewish people against Israel. When you have Christian Zionists who support Israel in larger numbers than Jewish people. So you're here to obfuscate, and you're an op, Nick Fuentes. So I point out the fact that he clearly didn't even try to make an argument. There are more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews in the world. Making it about Jews is pure cope. What do you think Zionism is, dipshit? It's a Jewish state. Now, this will be the last part I read here, because this is where he gave up. Because this is when he realized he was out of his depth. He said, what do you think Zionism is, dipshit? It's a Jewish state. So I'll just read my reply here. Your political ideas are so surface level, it's embarrassing. Christian Zionists fund and support Israel as an imperial project in order to maintain control of the Middle East. The Jewish state is a front, and we know that because the founders of Zionism wasn't even religious. The most religious faction of Judaism rejects Israel. Zionists want you to make it about Jews and religion. You play right into their hands because you're a useful idiot to Israel. Just like our brother Kwame Ture was explaining. The last thing they want to make it is about of anti-colonial struggle. Yeah, someone said I broke him. Bro, Nick Fuentes have these big debates on Twitter. He always argue with people. But you guys see how quickly he tapped out when it came to me? He's like, oh, you're just delusional. Oh, you're delusional. Then he was trying to have his fans go after me. Because trust me, I am getting attacked by Nick Fuentes fans right now. But because I dismantle him intellectually. They were trying to pretend he's an intellectual. You guys see how quickly I dismantle his ideology? The quote-unquote right-wing intellectual Nick Fuentes destroyed by a few basic points.